Welcome to Beyond Sundays, a podcast from two friends trying to follow Jesus more closely. Odds are you won't always agree with us and we'll stumble along the way, but we promise to be open and honest all the way through. I'm Matt here with Hannah. We've got a website you can choose to check out to keep our show links and socials all in one place. Check out beyondsundays.pod.com. We're grateful for all of our listeners and genuinely thank you for fitting us into your busy life. I don't know what you're doing right now. You're driving, you're doing the dishes, you're exercising, you're chilling on the couch. But seriously, thank you for listening to us.
Thank you.
It would help us out a lot if you would share our Apple and Spotify links and to rate and review us. We've got the best people in the community. Hannah, how are you?
Well, I'm concerned because I'm super zoomed into this to this video right now. So if you're watching on YouTube, I'm up close and personal today.
It's great. We're just gonna see it all. Can we say it's fall weather or in the Midwest? I think there is this season called false fall. Are we just
I've called faux fall.
Full fall?
Faux fall. That's what I've heard.
Like
F-A-U-X is how you say like.
Yeah, you spent a lot of time in Europe, so faux fall. Yeah, that's right.
I just saw it on the internet.
Yeah, you know how it is around here. You'll get like a couple days and you'll go outside and you'll be like, oh, wow. And then a week later it's 95 and you're like, what? Just come on, what happened with this? You know?
Yeah, I mean, it's been literally perfect outside.
It has been. Perfect. Today, we're recording this on a Thursday in Southern Illinois. It's a little spicier today. I did not have that same, like I left school and I was not like, oh, you know, just didn't have like that same,
same exact feeling. Yeah.
Yeah, but fall's just, I'm sure you know this already. Fall's the best season by 6 miles and it's just not close. And
wish it was longer.
Oh, I do too. Just all of it, just hoodies and bonfires and even the hot dogs. Like I'll take it all.
Even when it's kind of, I don't want it to be like I'm okay with it being warm, but today's a little warmer than I'd want it to be. But I don't mind if it gets warm-ish during the day, you know? Yeah. But I love that 50-degree weather in the morning and you can put your sweat. Oh, it's awesome. Nothing like it.
It's late August now, so I understand we're going to have some 90 days still. What I don't like is when it's early October. When it starts to be 90 degrees, and I'm like, okay, whoa. We can't.
Doesn't work for me. No, it doesn't work for me. Or it just hops. It hops from 90 degrees to all of a sudden it's 30 degrees. I hate when that happens.
Yeah. So we need to know how you feel about the quintessential fall outing on a weekend. I don't know if I've ever talked to you in the history of our friendship about this. How do you feel about pumpkin patches?
I love it. I love anything like that. Pumpkin patches. Festivals.
This does not surprise me at all. Yeah.
100% love it. Liam and I are supposed to go to one that's like in St. Louis this year. I think that's where it is. But they do like a big corn maze and then they'll have like this some type of glow thing. And I just eat that stuff up. I love it. I love it.
So I think I love the idea of a pumpkin patch. And then sometimes when I get to the pumpkin patch, I'm like, is this
you don't know what to do
doing right now? You know, like, I don't know. I'd rather just be like at my house doing things. I don't know. Like,
no, I get that.
Yay, the pumpkins. And sure, I'll pick a couple. Now, here's what I do like the little fall products, like the apple cider and that kind of stuff. I do like looking through that kind of thing. But, you know, well, you don't know, but like Michelle wanted to take like pictures of the girl and I'm a good sport. I'm in it. I've done tons of yearbooks. I'm giving little suggestions here and there, but I don't know. I think I'm more in love with the idea, maybe even just the smell of a pumpkin patch coming out of like a plastic thing from my wall than I am actually going to a pumpkin patch.
Two very different things. I mean, I'm not somebody that wants to go every weekend. And honestly, I don't want to drive. Anything over 45 minutes is really a struggle for me.
Yeah.
So it needs to be local. But I'm all in for any sort of fall festival. Like
now, if there's some kind of like hayride or it's going to go into the evening and I'm going to do like an evening hayride or like now we're talking, like we're getting into my stuff there.
That's where I really like the walk through this thing I'm talking about. It's like a glow in the dark. Not a glow in the dark, but it's like a glow walk through sort of thing. And I'm all for that. For that.
I get so torn in half during fall too, because I'm like, yes, let's go to fall at the St. Louis Zoo and let's do this thing. You know what I mean? Like there's just so many activities you can do. And then sometimes I'm like, I start looking at the calendar. I'm like, wait. We have something every Friday and every Saturday in October. I'm sorry. I don't want it.
I want to be able to sit at home and enjoy too.
Fall at my house. Yes.
Yeah. And we forget that that's just as fun. Like sitting on my front porch. I love it. I love it. October does fill up like crazy.
It does.
For some reason, it's like everybody, well, I guess maybe everybody wants to get married then. September, October,
I don't know, but
nice time.
I'm just going to tell you right now in late August, I'm going to get my Captain America shield out for some of October, and I'm just going to let some stuff bounce off, even if it's like kind of important. Like, oh, sorry, it's October. I can't go anywhere because this is important
Yeah.
to me. You know?
Yeah. My honey gets to go to Vermont for a wedding, which will be beautiful.
Oh yeah,
But he's only there for like maybe 2 nights. Like I mean, he is not there very long. Um, Sad to miss it, but kind of happy I
yeah.
get to
But
be.
you get to do it at home. Yeah, 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 yeah. Now, if we're
Yeah,
talking
I
about
get
like that, I would be very excited about that.
that's one of my Captain American
Okay, all right.
shields that I
You put
had
your
to put
shield up.
up.
Good for you.
That
Good for you.
didn't yeah, couldn't
Yeah.
couldn't do it.
Sometimes you have to, you know. So, so the thing we're going to talk about today is I just named it "Tending the Orchard," and I just thought,
Yeah,
just a little pumpkin patch, some
might as
apple
well.
trees,
Yeah.
let's just talk pumpkin patches right here. We want to talk about tending our spiritual gifts, and I think spiritual gifts are very interesting on a number of levels. And it just as I was thinking about this and praying about this about what to do, I just was really struck, like just off the top. Do you feel like you have had enough conversations in your life about your spiritual gifts?
I I
And
I don't
when
feel
I'm
like I've
asking that,
had.
I don't mean to,
Uh-huh.
I'm not trying to throw shade at anybody or any church I've
No.
ever been to. Nothing like that. I mean, just like in general, I started thinking about this. I was like, man, I don't know if I talk about this enough.
Yeah, I feel that way. I feel like I haven't talked about it enough. Again, I agree with you. It's not because somebody didn't do their job. Um, I just feel like it's kind of talked about in this way that is like a blanket. We have spiritual gifts, we're gifted, but I don't feel like I've ever done a true deep dive or had a deep study on that. Um, yeah, so I don't feel like I talk about it as much as I should.
Well, I'm going to run through. There's like three primary places in the New Testament where Paul starts listing spiritual gifts. But before I list, it's just a gargantuan amount of spiritual gifts. So,
Yeah,
listener, just bear with me for a minute. But I think we should name out all of these because I think they're important. But this is one of the only things in the Bible Paul writes about in one of these spots. He writes about the spiritual gifts to earnestly desire them. So that's
yeah,
like go after them, want them. This is one of the only things in the Bible that we're told it is not just okay for you to want it, but you should be wanting these things. And
yeah,
that just in and of itself is interesting because typically in the Bible, it's like, don't be greedy. Don't tie yourself to
yeah.
money. Don't tie yourself to this. But Paul's like, go after this as hard as you can. I find that to be really interesting.
I do too, because it puts into perspective if you're going after it, can you choose it? Can you choose what your gifting is?
Oh,
Or is it something that is kind of bestowed on you or given?
just like is it a discovery or yeah, that is
Yeah.
also interesting.
Yeah. I mean,
I mean, what do you
yeah.
think about that before we even go further and start listening?
I,
Do you pick? Do you have them? Do
I
they
think
stay
it's a
with
little
you
bit of
forever?
both. I think
Okay.
it's a little bit of both. I think that I am a firm believer that everything that you need is already inside of you.
Mm.
And I do think that it takes discovery based on the situations you've been through, but also the desires of your heart. I don't think God's going to put you in a position of something that you just totally hate. Now, it doesn't mean there's not resistance and there aren't choices we have to make that'll be difficult to fulfill
He did to
those
Moses,
spiritual
though.
gifts. I
Moses
don't,
didn't want to do.
but that was because of his speech impediment. I don't know if
All
that
right.
was primarily because Moses, like, I don't know. I don't know.
I don't know, because then
I
there's
don't
the
know.
scriptures that's like, in your weakness, that's when I'm your strength. I don't know. I get where you're coming from. I understand that. But
I got to
I kind
think
of happen
about
to
that.
think sometimes they don't match our base level personality. Sometimes they are different from,
Okay, so maybe not our base level. Maybe not
okay.
our base level. But I do think it lots of times will line up with um your talents, your desires, and like the natural gifts that you have. Um
Oh, we're going to disagree. Okay,
uh-oh,
listeners, yes,
uh-oh,
we're going to get
uh-oh.
there. We never do that on this podcast, so here
Nope.
we go. Okay, so there are three primary locations for the spiritual gifts. So if you want to read these chapters out further, there's First Corinthians 12, there's
Mm-hmm.
Romans 12, and there's Ephesians 4. And let me just say off the top, I don't think that this is the exhaustive list of spiritual gifts, and this is not meant to do that, but I'm going to list them out. In First Corinthians 12, the spiritual gifts listed are word of wisdom, word of knowledge, faith, healing, miracles, prophecy, discerning spirits, tongues, and the interpretation of those tongues. In Romans 12, some of these are duplicates. There's prophecy, serving, teaching, encouragement, giving, leading, showing mercy. And in Ephesians 4, this is the fivefold ministry that's very famous in the New Testament. Apostles,
Mhm.
and Hannah, I just take that as church planters. Is that your best understanding of the word apostle?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it would be different than discipleship, right?
Yeah, I think
Or
so.
okay, okay.
Yeah. So we'll call it apostle slash church planter, prophet, evangelist, pastor, and teacher. So that is an overwhelmingly long list of spiritual gifts. So before we even start talking about like whether they match our personality, et cetera, what do you make of the fact that there are so many of them?
I think it's just proof that everybody has them and there has to be a it has to be diverse. You can't just have a preacher and not have all these other giftings without it, the body being successful. Because in, I think it was First Corinthians, whenever you start out, I think that's what it is. You start out reading it and it lists off some of these giftings. That next section talks about the body of Christ
Yes, yes.
and how it all connects. And you
Hmm.
can't have your hand mad at, the foot or what,
Mad at your ring toe and
whatever it lists off. And I think there's obviously there's relevance to that. And so I
Mhm.
think this list is so exhaustive because you have to be able to fill every part of the body. It requires so much.
Yeah, I think of that phrase, it takes a village to raise a
Yes.
child.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
it takes a village to make a kingdom. Yeah,
Yes, for
that's
sure.
it. It takes all of us. And to me, what this is a great representation of is I think it's like literally every single person in the kingdom is going to have some kind,
Something.
somewhere in this list. They're going to have some of these spiritual gift or not. And what worries me is if we're not investigating this and we're not thinking about this, and as Paul said, if we're not really going after these gifts and earnestly desiring them, I just kind of think that the kingdom malfunctions because it doesn't have some of the pieces that it needs to function. I'm not saying that God is weak or anything like that, but
Sure.
God does use people. And I think there's probably chinks in the armor all over the kingdom because people aren't using their spiritual gifts.
Yeah, and I have two things to say about some of that. My first thought is so some of these things that are listed as gifts, it gets a little dicey for me because some of it feels like just necessary things that we should be doing as Christians. Like
Okay.
mercy was one that was listed, being somebody that's
Hmm.
merciful, and speaking in tongues. It says it's for everyone. So when does that turn? My question then becomes: when does that turn into a gifting, and when is it just something that's expected? Like giving. Giving is expected, but when is it a gifting, and when is it just a part of what we do?
Yeah, I totally see you there. This is the way that I think about this, and you can tell me if you think this is wrong or you think about it a different way. I do think that everybody needs to be giving. I hope so. I'm going to teach about it in church
Yeah,
on Sunday, and
yeah,
that's what I'm going
yeah,
to say, but that like some people are gifted specially to, we even say it about people like, oh, he'd give you the shirt off his back. You know what I
yeah,
mean? We don't
yeah.
say that about everybody. So that's like this extra level of the ability to give. I don't know. Is that crazy?
No, I don't think that's crazy. I mean, there are people like that you would identify them like that. I also think too of something you were saying earlier. There's the parable of the people with talents that God gave them.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think one of the reasons it is so important to talk about this is because if we are like the person that was given the one talent and hid it, and we don't grow it and utilize
Mm.
it, what good is it? So I do believe there has to be discovery, and you have to uh, um, grow in that gifting, or you are like the person that has just buried it and hidden it and said, okay, God, here I still have it, but I haven't done anything with it.
Well, if you follow that story out to its conclusion, not only is the kingdom weakened, but that one talent servant faced some bad consequences for
Yeah,
not developing and using. So if on this podcast, if we're saying like universally, when you come to God, everybody's going to have some kind of spiritual gift that they need to be using. I, I would shudder to be the person who at the end of the world goes and stands in front of Jesus and is like, well, yeah, I didn't really do anything with my gifting, Jesus. Like, what does that look like? I
yeah.
don't know what else to say besides the end of that parable is not good for that guy.
Well, and it's wild because we're so Big C church can be so caught up in, and I have been this way in salvation and in finding the initial salvation, which obviously is important. The only way to the Father is through Jesus. The only way to make it to
Yeah.
heaven is through Jesus. We know
Hmm.
that. But these things, like growing our talents and our gifting, uh, it didn't end well for that guy. And when we don't talk about these things, are we going to end up at the end of the road and realize, oh, we were so focused on that initial and we
Mm.
didn't grow and now we're not going to make it? I just think we have to talk about these things. There has to be growth.
Yeah.
There's not just this, I made it because I gave my life to Jesus.
Yeah. So let me make my best pitch to you
Okay.
about the fact that I don't always think our spiritual gift matches our root personality or our base level talents as a person. Because to your point, you've already said this. Some of these are like we need to be givers.
Yeah.
There are like words of encouragement here. There are people who show mercy. There are people who serve. Like we all need to be servants. So some of this you could get yourself into this like universal thing, but then I worry about that sometimes because again I worry about people making it to where they feel like I mean we don't talk about prophecy much. Like how do you
No.
have the base level personality of a prophet? Or how do you have the base level personality of someone who's capable of discerning spirits? And I just worry that if we limit ourselves only to, well, I'm this kind of person, these are the things I feel comfortable with, this is what I'm good at, that if that's all that we do, sometimes I worry that we're going to leave something on the table that God wants to give us, kind of like a supernatural gifting that doesn't necessarily fit with our base level personality.
I guess my pushback to that would be, I do think it can still be inside of you and just not discovered yet. I think
Okay. Okay.
I just feel like I think of Paul, he was smart, right? Paul was
Yes.
smart.
Sure.
I can't remember if he's the one that was someone was saying recently was not well. He was a boring speaker. Did you hear that recently?
Well, he did put that one kid to sleep because he was talking for so long and he like fell out the window and he died and Paul had to go down and like pray him back to life.
Yeah. So I mean, he was dynamic or whatever enough that
Mm-hmm.
people followed him.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think of his conversion and what he had before played into the gifting he had after. And so I don't know, maybe it's not that it's always wrapped up in your personality, but also in your situation.
Mm.
Um, and
To
when you
me
get
though,
to,
this ties into that episode that is like, is Paul a fair template for the rest of us? Paul
hmm,
obviously had like a mega special calling that nobody else is ever going to, nobody's going to have to write the New Testament again. You know what I'm saying?
but when you argue that we all have that, we all have this specific calling that only we can fulfill. And obviously, if Paul hadn't chosen to follow Christ, somebody else, God would have
Yeah, you're right.
used someone else.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know. I guess I get to when I get to that prophecy portion is where I'm like, okay, I typically feel like somebody with the spirit of prophecy is somebody that is pretty in tune with the spiritual realm. Like I think of one of my really good friends who she's had dreams since she was a
Okay.
kid,
Okay. Hmm.
um, and she just has tapped into the spiritual realm in ways that I'm not. And I don't believe it's because I'm not as spiritual. I think it's just a difference in personalities, and who we are as people. Now, maybe that isn't right. Maybe, I should be having these dreams and that stuff kind of just, it would spook me, I think, too much. And she's really just open to that in a different way. And so I think God speaks to her through those things. Again, I may be wrong with that, but that's my
No,
I really,
I absolutely see where you're coming from. I just don't want like I don't know. I guess in my head, you're thinking of your friend like that, and that makes sense
yeah,
to me. I think the kind of person that I'm thinking of is like I don't want someone who's typically a reserved person thinking, well, I can never be evangelist because what if God,
sure.
you know what I mean? If that's the calling that God places on your life, then that's something for you to overcome and for God to work through you. I remembered more the scripture of Paul saying like, Paul never came with, I'm paraphrasing a little bit, but he never came with fancy terminology. He just came in the demonstration of the power of the Spirit. Paul didn't
That's
need
an
to make
interesting point.
highfalutin arguments with it. He didn't need fancy language. The Spirit demonstrated Paul's power in his teaching to people. And frankly, I don't even know what that looks like. When
No.
Paul's talking, I don't know for sure, to stand in the room with Paul, I don't know what that means. But I don't know that Paul was I think Paul was very smart, but I don't know that Paul was a gifted orator.
Oh, that's a good point because you are right with people that may feel um nervous to do certain things and then they can use that as an excuse. But I still believe it's in them. I still believe
Okay.
it's there. I think it has to be pulled out.
Yeah, then if I agree with you because I think in a way we are saying the same thing.
Yes,
Like
yes.
you're saying it's in there somewhere, and I'm saying I don't want people to box themselves into a corner and miss what you're saying, which is that it really is in there. And if you box yourself to a corner and you
Yeah.
just say, no, I'm this, no, I'm this, no, I'm this, and you keep telling God, no, well, you're not going to use the gift.
When I was looking on Bible Hub, it was speaking specifically about distinguishing between those natural talents
Yeah,
and spiritual gifts. And you may have seen that. It does say it can be their definition, their idea was it can be
sure.
influenced by innate qualities or shaped through upbringing, but it really emerges from a regenerated heart. So
Mm.
when you're born again, yeah, it may not be that goes with your point. It may not be what you've been comfortable with before because I don't believe it. I think that's the key there. I don't believe it's supposed to be comfortable. So
Okay.
I'm not in any way saying, "Oh, you like to speak in front of people. You're comfortable with that. That means you're called to be a
Yeah, right.
teacher." I think that's too simple. Um, maybe it's in whatever you've been through or in the way that you think about things or the way you process the word of God or
Hmm.
the way that you can speak one on one to somebody. God takes those talents, and without him, you couldn't get over the shyness of speaking it. Does
Yeah,
that make
I think so.
sense?
Yeah, I think this is going to shock longtime listeners of the Beyond Sundays podcast. But here's what I think it really comes down to. You have a personal one-on-one relationship with Jesus,
Yeah.
and you
Yeah.
develop with him, and he shows you things. And so let's take our conversation there. How do you, quote unquote, find your tree? So of all these wonderful trees in the orchard, and let's say you're planted and you're a tree. How do you know? How do you know what your gifts are? And I'd like us to be as practical as we can. Although
Sure.
I'm not going to sit here on this podcast and say, do X, Y, and Z, and then bang, the spirit of prophecy comes. I don't think it works like
Yeah.
that. But practically speaking, how do we develop these things?
Well, obviously, you have to know God. When you
Mm,
just said that, you have to pray. You have to be in prayer. Um, but I also think you have to expose yourself to all different types of ministries. I
yes.
think that's one area that people miss. And I think you and I were both very blessed in
Hmm.
the fact that we got to start working in ministry young. So my ministry, like in just simple leadership, started with that silly sign team that we did. And and
That's
at
true.
like it did at like 13 years old, I was leading people. And I didn't know a lot about it and I wasn't comfortable, but I do feel like that allowed parts of me to come out that
Mm,
I didn't really understand or didn't really I didn't really know those existed. So I think one way is getting involved. I've done Sunday school. I've taught a little youth choir. I've led worship. There've been
hmm
different areas, and I
hmm
think within that, God has kind of exposed talents and gifts that I have and that I can use for the kingdom. So I really think getting involved in different ministries is a good one.
I think that is a spectacular answer. And I'm just going to talk about the other side of the coin there
Yeah.
because you talked about getting involved in a number of different things. And you're just one of those people that God's just given you a lot of different kind of things that you can do. And what I'm getting ready to say, I don't mean this negative on any person. I have seen people try to be involved in certain ministries, and it is very clear that that's not what they should be doing.
Yeah.
That's not their spiritual gifting. That's not what God wants them to do. That's not, but I think that's an important part of the process. And
It
if you
is.
never go knock on those doors, you're never going to know if it's going to open to you or not. But I do think it's worth saying to people that just because you go knock on the door and the door doesn't open, and like we've all seen it, you kind of fall flat. That's not your thing. You're just not good at it. That's not some kind of defeat to you or some kind of
No.
sign that you're not worth anything. It's just like you've got another thing to do. And that's perfectly, not only is that perfectly acceptable, that's exactly what you should be doing. That's what God wants for you.
Yeah, 100%. So I do think you have to be open to it and open to what people around you are saying. I
Mm.
mean, explore with other people your talents. And I know this is silly, but like I have a group of girls that I spend a lot of time with, and we will do sometimes it's just painting and things like that. But you get opportunity to like do these Jesus nights or something where you're like journaling things or whatever it is.
Okay.
I do think getting in groups like that and being able to speak openly about where you are and what you're good at and what you want to do for the kingdom, those kind of conversations pull back the veil and allow you to see, oh, I am good at that. Oh, I do that well. And on the flip side, I think it's as important as ministers to speak into people. And I'm not saying you tell them their gift, but when you see somebody that's doing something really, really well,
Hmm.
call that out. You know,
Hmm.
hey, you do a great job
Hmm.
when you get up and you say this in front of people. You should think about doing that more often. And I think as a minister, you should be encouraging that.
Looking to other people to grow them too.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah. So
Yeah.
both sides. I've
Yeah.
had people that spoke those things to me that really helped guide me.
Yeah.
And I also think you've got to do that on the flip end. Now if I
Now that
can
you
talk,
have,
now that
you're
I'm in
established.
ministry,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Okay. Well, let me drill down on one of these then, and let's pick one that, like, word of knowledge. Okay.
yeah,
So God reveals some kind of piece of information to you that's key in somebody's life, and sometimes I think you'll hear people saying it like, "Well, the preacher really read my mail today." They'll say stuff
yeah,
like that. How, I don't know how a painting night for Jesus is gonna like get you in the realm where you're think. I mean, do you just literally pray? Okay, God, I see this gift here. It's word of knowledge. If this is something that you want, I'm open to being used. And like, how do you do one of those rather than giving,
yeah,
serving? Some of those are easier to get yourself involved in. I don't know how to become a prophet.
yeah. Is a word of knowledge the same as discernment?
To me, okay, so we may have different definitions here. Discernment is like that feels of God to me, and I don't. I think that person just, you know what I mean. Like you're able to discern the spiritual nature of what's going on. To me, word of knowledge is you again know some piece of information about someone or that's critical, and you're able to bring it up, and no, you shouldn't know it, but God gives it to you so that for a specific purpose to minister to someone.
Interesting. I think that has to happen through prayer. I mean, honestly, I do. I
Yeah.
think that, um, I mean, that's not to me a trial and error thing. I think that,
You
um,
shouldn't just try to say random stuff and see if some sticks.
no, no. And I have seen that happen a lot of times.
Sure.
And so,
Sure.
um, I think that you have to be close with God. I think
Yeah.
you really have to know his voice, and the only way you know his voice is by spending time with him. So going back to that girls group,
Mm,
getting together with the group and talking about the word of God and having Bible studies and having
mm,
prayer nights together, it just continues to facilitate this atmosphere where you're getting to know God on a deeper level. Get alone with him, listen. Sometimes I just have a hard time with some of these giftings thinking, oh, it's specific to people. And maybe it's because it's not, I mean, that's Bible. I mean,
yeah.
but it's just not talked about as
Yeah.
much.
Well,
Like prophecy, you know?
exactly. Yeah. Yeah. I think some of these are like more mundane, or as your brother
Yeah.
might say, mundane, like leading, giving, teaching, evangelizing. We see
Mhm.
that, right? And then there
Mhm.
is this like mystical category of word of wisdom, word of knowledge, miracles, healing, prophecy. And I guess one of my concerns about people is that some people, or maybe, I don't know, maybe this is crazy, everyone needs to at least brush up and think about these more mystical gifts or talk to God about them, because I don't know how we're ever, you're not going to trip into like being a miracle worker. You know what I'm getting at? Like
No. Yeah,
some
I
of
know
those
exactly
things
what
I
you
think
mean.
are just like in the moment and they happen. And I think that speaks to what you're talking about, as in you've got to grow a deep relationship with God so that you know his prompting, because it may just happen to you one time in your life in that moment and God calls you to that, but it occurs because God wants it out of you.
Well, it's kind of scary in our modern world because I mean, and I won't, but we could list off um really famous preachers and evangelists who
Mm,
claim to walk in the spirit of healing or whatever. Um,
I
And
think
it
you just do
seemed
one. It's just me and you.
no, no.
Okay.
But people will fall out on the floor. And I'm not saying that those situations there wasn't actually healing,
Sure.
but I think or miracles or prophecy, but I do think it can get kind of confusing because you see these people and these people use and abuse it. And it's not right or it's not accurate. So it's like, okay, when is it accurate?
Mm.
When is it true? Am I really experiencing this? And I don't know at times how to balance that because it gets a little, frankly, it gets a little weird sometimes.
I think this is the problem with this subject matter to me is that in these more, and maybe mystical is not a fair word, and I'm not trying to make this
No, that's
weird,
that's a
but
good word, I
you know
think.
what I mean? But these more mystical gifts, I think we're all infants because we don't talk
Yeah.
about them and we don't think about them and we don't pray. I mean, I don't pray about them. Maybe you do, but
Not like I should.
and so if we're never interacting with it, I just don't know how we're ever supposed to grow or hear God's voice. There are obviously people who do, but I don't. Maybe they've had a different track with this. So, Hannah, what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to try to say what I think your spiritual gifts are.
Okay.
Okay. I think your spiritual giftings are teaching,
Mhm.
leading, word of wisdom. I think it's possible that you have the spiritual gift of being an apostle. You have like those kind of traits and things, but that has not been like an active moment that God has called to you in your life.
Mhm.
And I would like to say, like, I don't know. Do you have the word of knowledge somewhere? Are you potentially a prophet? Do you have like a miracle? I don't know because I've never seen those things happen, but I think those are harder to define. So,
I do
so
too.
teaching, leading, word of wisdom, and apostle. What do you think?
Um, yeah, I mean, I think for myself, I think, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
that's what
I
I think
mean,
you have.
I think for sure the teaching, you said teaching,
Leading.
leading, I feel like I had highlighted. I have a list over here too.
Okay, your own. Okay, word of wisdom. I think you have. And
That's a very, very
to me,
kind one.
that is someone is in some kind of open state before you and you know what to say to them.
Sure.
I just think you're gifted and good at that and hear from God there. And then
Yeah.
apostle, and I saw you raise an eyebrow. So YouTube listener, she's not so sure about that one, but I don't know. I just
It's
think
just
you
you hear
have
these
those
words
kind
and
of
you
traits.
think all the time people will call themselves apostle or
Yeah, yeah,
prophet,
yeah,
blah, blah, blah. And I'm
yeah.
not saying that's wrong. It's just
Right.
it kind of makes the back of your,
It's not as typical. Yeah, yeah.
it's not as typical, but it does push me a little bit because, excuse me, I feel like it is very natural for me to teach and to lead. Those are very
Okay.
natural things for me to do. And I do feel like those are built-in parts of my personality. I
Hmm.
feel like the wisdom and knowledge, I feel like because if I were to really say like outside of these just direct spiritual gifts, if I were to say something that I feel like God has given me that translates to all areas of ministry for me is like being loving and welcoming in this way where I feel like I'm really good at listening and being there
Mm-hmm.
and
Hmm.
understanding. And that's the area that I feel like I'm strongest in.
Okay.
Um, so yes, but when it comes to apostle, I'm like, "Ugh, I don't even know what that entails. But then it presses me a little bit too, where it's like, am I an infant in this area?
Mm.
Are there things that I have said, oh, I know God's gifted me here and can be used, but I've allowed that to limit me to think beyond that. Like
Hmm.
interpretation, I have never done a tongue interpretation. Maybe
Mm.
I should. I don't know. I mean, I don't even know. And I know as a kid,
Sure.
I used to think all the time, oh my gosh, is this me? Is it my turn to do this? I was like so worried
Yeah.
about it.
You were waiting to get the download.
Was waiting to get the download and I wasn't sure how it really happened, you know?
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
kind of always freaked out.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I don't feel like again, I don't feel like I've prayed about that enough. But I do know that it is just in me, the teaching and the leadership.
Sure.
And part of that's because of how I was brought up and just who I am as a human being. So those feel natural. And then when I start to think about you, I think for sure the teaching, I
Mm.
think for sure the leadership, I think for sure the serving and helping. You're always willing, always going out of your way to serve and to help. I don't have the full list that you have either, by the way.
That's okay.
Um,
I'm not going to quit the podcast if you
I
don't say something I think you should
no, I think that I have faith. Do you have faith written down too?
for myself.
No, no, no,
As
just
a
in
spiritual
general.
gift, yes, I
Yeah.
do.
I think that that's a great one for you. And this is
Hmm.
why I say that is because I feel like anytime something's going in at the altar, something's going on at the altar, you are one person that doesn't matter who is praying, you're going to go up and pray with them. And it's this intensity.
Mm.
And I believe with faith that you're praying. There's never, obviously, I don't know what's going on in your brain, but
Sure.
it doesn't feel like there are these moments where
Mm.
it doesn't matter if you're praying for this old man or this young child. There's no doubt that God can and will do what he needs to do.
Mm.
And those that have heard you teach, I mean, to me, you are one of the greatest. I genuinely mean that when I say you're one of the greatest teachers. The way you present information, you can present it to an old person or a young person, and they get it. And so when we rate those, you are a teacher.
Mm.
And yeah, how do you feel
Yeah.
about that?
No, I think that's a good list. And the thing that just strikes me right away, and just to pull back the curtain for a second for the listeners, we don't do this often. I have like a whole other like page of things that we were going to talk about, but I'm just so drawn in this episode to this idea of these like mystical giftings that I feel
Sure.
like I have been in church for
Yeah.
39 years of my life, and I don't know what all my spiritual gifts are because I just don't even feel like I've prayed about these things.
No, it kind of freaks me out a little bit now because I'm like,
Does it?
yeah, I'm like, my whole life again, teaching, leadership. Like I
Sure.
know that I've got that, but is it because that's who I am as a human, or is it because have I stepped into that in a way that is
Mm.
truly a gifting, or am I still walking in my own human ability? Because
It's
that's
like
the
the chicken or
difference.
the egg thing. Yeah.
Yeah,
Which
yeah.
which is it?
Which am I walking in my own talent? Which I do believe you should grow your talent. I believe, or whatever it is, you're gifting. But am I truly walking in the gifting God's given me, or am I just relying on what I know I have inside myself?
Okay. So I
Or
want
is
to
there a
I want
difference?
to I don't I don't know. I don't know. We may have to like return to this at some future time after we like you and I have spent some personal time talking to God about it, and I
Yeah,
don't know, maybe this is something that has to come up again. I do want to tell a story about one of these like mystical gifts.
sure.
And I'm going to drill down on tongues and interpretation for those who are not super familiar with this. In my experience, I've been in many church services where someone will lift their voice and they will say something in another language that they are not familiar with, as
Yeah.
as Paul writes that this is the gift of tongues, and then it'll be not just within a few seconds someone else will lift their voice and they will give an English translation of that. And that whole thing in and of itself is incredibly interesting. Paul writes, if you want to go read in First Corinthians more, he writes that we don't have time to do in this episode some incredibly interesting things about who the tongues are for and who the native language is for and all that. It's fascinating stuff. But I do remember at a church that we used to go to, the pastor was gone. And so I was the assistant pastor there, and I was like in charge of the service, and someone else was going to speak. But a lady started to give a tongues message in the service. I don't think you were here for
Yeah.
this.
I
There
don't
was a
think I
brief
was. I think
period
I
where you and I didn't go
heard it.
to
Yeah.
church together. Yeah.
Yeah. So sad.
So she starts to give this message, and I just felt this check on the inside of me, and I was like, this is not, she's just doing this for her. And so
Hmm.
right in the mic, right in the middle of worship service, like you know how that is, the whole thing gets hushed down and
Yeah.
there's this like feeling. It felt like that, but I didn't feel like she was in the right spot. And so I was like, well, nobody else is going to do this, so I'm going to have to do this. So I was in the microphone, I stopped
Jeez.
her, and I just went on with the service. And I had several people come to me after that service that said, I felt what you felt. I'm glad that you did that.
Oh my
But
gosh.
but in that moment, I felt like I had jumped off the edge of a cliff, and like I've never done anything like this before. I've been around all this kind of stuff my whole life, but I've never been the one to do it. And so I almost wonder if God prompted those people to come say something to me because I needed that
Confirm it.
reassurance that, so to me, that was like a spiritual gift of the discerning of spirits. Now, am
Yeah.
I am I like a discerner of spirit? Like, should I make myself a name tag? You know what I mean? I don't know if that's the case, or I
Yes.
don't know if it just should I? Okay, or I don't know if it just dropped down in that one moment and God clicked that gift on for me because He needed me to use it, and then it's off.
Let me ask you this. Do
Yeah,
you feel like you notice that in other areas of your life? Do you feel that discernment where you can kind of feel, oh, this, I mean,
sometimes, but
obviously the
doesn't don't all
spirit.
Christians? You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's why I
Yeah,
feel like it's hard to
I know.
know. when is it truly in the spirit,
Yeah.
or truly just because we have the spirit inside of us, and when is it the gifting?
Yeah.
That's where I'm like, okay, I'm not for sure.
Mm. I haven't prepped you for this at all,
Uh-oh.
but is there are there any of these, like, again, these things that I'm drawn to, these more mystical gifts, any like thing you can think, anytime you've seen it go wrong, anything you want to say as far as like your experience with some of these things?
Hmm.
While
Yes.
you're thinking, so like when there are moments when I'm like, oh, there's about to be a tongues and interpret, like I'll
Sure.
know that it's coming, but I've never been the one to give it.
Yeah, I felt that. I This is a story you already know, and our friend told us both this story, but we were at a youth service, and somebody came and
I have
prayed
this in
with,
my notes.
oh gosh, okay, somebody came and prayed with one of our friends, and um was praying over their marriage, and correct me if I'm wrong, but their divorce or their marriage and how hard their marriage was praying for them. The
Yes.
individual is a wonderful person, and so
Yeah.
they went along with the person, kept
Sure.
praying.
Sure.
The person wasn't married, had not been
Correct.
married, like, so
Correct.
none of that applied to that person.
Hmm.
um and so I do think that's a moment things go wrong. I
It
also
is.
think this is something I have to say too. I do think sometimes people claim they have the spirit of prophecy or
Mm,
whatever,
mm.
and they will say, I know you've been struggling with back pain your whole life, and the person's come up with a walker. Well, we all knew that person was
Sure,
struggling with
sure,
back
sure, sure,
pain.
sure,
So
sure.
sometimes we call it something
Yeah.
that it's not.
You're just using
But
context clues and calling yourself a prophet.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And so
Yeah.
again, I'm still torn, and I think you're right. We need to both go back and pray about this. What is that spiritual gifting,
Mm.
and what is just walking in the spirit,
Yeah. Well,
you know?
this is how I think, at least, and I really feel like we'll return to this, and
I do
I don't know
too.
how soon we'll return to it, but it's fascinating to me. This is where I think we should end this today. Is just, despite the fact that you and I don't have all the answers, and we have
Yeah.
both been in church, or I mean, there's almost like 75 years of church experience on this
Yeah.
podcast every week. We don't have all the answers. We should say that, like, everybody's spiritual gift is not about you, it's about God.
Yes.
And I do wonder sometimes these more spectacular gifts, like the miracles and the healing and the prophecy. I think that, and you're speaking to this with what you just said, those gifts can be very dangerous
Mhm.
because people are in awe of those things, and it would be so easy as the person to just slip into that and make that about you. And
Yeah.
so I think God really has to be careful who he gives those gifts to and when he gives them, and is the person right and ready. And again, I think this goes back to something you said. This is why it is so critical for you to be humble and submitted and having an
Mhm.
active relationship with Jesus Christ, because I mean, you could take these gifts and go way the wrong way.
Yeah, for sure you could. And then I start to wonder, are we are these gifts supposed to be something that just come in the right moment, or is it something
Mm.
you are gifted in? Because if you're gifted in miracles, you would think, I mean, you hear about these miracle services, but you think it would be a bigger thing. Like, oh, this person has the gift of miracles. And why is this person not preaching every single week and just allowing these miracles to happen? Or is it just bestowed on somebody in a moment,
Yeah.
particularly right then and there?
But then on the other hand, there's teaching. And
I know.
you teaching my daughters is one of the primary reasons why we're going to the church that we're going
Sure.
to. And I don't think that that's something that, like, just comes on you every Sunday morning and every Wednesday night. I think that's just you.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't know. Listeners, of all the episodes that we have ever done, I love to hear what you say. I love your comments. We read everything. Let me talk to the people on TikTok right now. Even the nutbags on TikTok, we read all
Yeah.
of those too. Okay. I'll take anybody's comments on anything. I'm down for it. I am genuinely more interested, listeners, after hearing this episode, of just hearing what you think about some of
Yes.
these giftings and the way that you interact with this stuff, and the way, maybe experiences that you've had in your own life. And if you would allow us to, when you write it in or email in, we would love to share, like, a story
Yes.
of your gifting online, especially some of on this podcast, especially some of these things that, I don't know, we just don't have as much experience with. I think it would be fascinating to talk to people who've been experienced and used these gifts. You would love that too?
I would love it. I would love it.
All right. Well, please write us in. The best way for you to get a hold of us is you can go to beyondsundays.pod.com. All of our links are on there. You can find our TikTok, our Twitter, our Blue Sky, our Instagram. Everything is on there. You can comment on our show on Apple and Spotify. If you are going to comment on our show and tell us something, take just a second more and rate and review us. It helps out a lot.
Yep.
We do want to thank you for joining us today. We enjoy going Beyond Sundays and hope that you enjoyed the conversation today. Again, if you've got any thoughts or comments, we would love them. Thanks for listening to our show. And until next time, may the Lord bless you and keep you.